Welcome back. In this session we are going to see how NooJ represents and stores all the results of its various analyses. So when NooJ applies any linguistic resource to a text or a corpus, NooJ adds or removes annotations to a structure that's called the Text Annotation Structure. During the lexical analysis, typically NooJ will apply dictionaries and morphological grammars to the text to add annotations that represent atomic linguistic units. During the syntactic analysis, NooJ will apply syntactic grammars to the text and add either structural annotations or remove annotations that correspond to atomic linguistic units that NooJ knows that they are not there because it solved some ambiguities thanks to the context. So what is the text annotation structure? It's just a structure in which there are annotations, and NooJ can annotate any atomic linguistic unit and represent them in the task as annotations. So for example, if there is an agglutinated or contracted form such as cannot, NooJ will represent this word form with a sequence of two annotations. So it will annotate can as a verb followed by not as an adverb. When NooJ recognizes a simple word, it will annotate it as a simple annotation. So is will be annotated as be as a verb present third person singular. If NooJ recognizes a multi-word unit, for example blue colors, it will annotate it by adding an annotation such as blue color, comma, noun, human, plural. And if NooJ recognizes a discontinuous expression, for example in the text turns the light off, it will annotate it as turn off, verb, present, third person singular. So how does NooJ do that? Of course, it uses linguistic resources. So typically to recognize an atomic linguistic unit, it will use morphological grammars, for example, to split the word form into several atomic linguistic units. So cannot, if NooJ has access to a grammar that says, if you recognize cannot, you produce these two annotations, well, in a text, if there is the word form cannot, it will produce the corresponding annotations. If NooJ accesses a text in which you have these two lexical entries, such as be, verb, with a inflectional paradigm that explains to NooJ how to conjugate the verb to be, and let's say be is associated with other properties, such as aux for auxiliary verb, and then blue color as a multi-word unit is going to be in the dictionary associated with information noun, human, plus some paradigm that explains to NooJ how to put these multi-word units in plural. Then when NooJ recognizes the word form is in the text, it will associate it automatically with the annotation be, verb, auxiliary, present, third person singular. When it recognizes blue colors, it will annotate it as blue color, noun, human, plural. Recognizing discontinuous frozen expressions is a little bit more complex. We need two linguistic resources, first a dictionary and then a grammar. So here in this example, the frozen expression to turn off, the phrasal verb turn off, is represented by this lexical entry that says turn is a verb with property PV, phrasal verb. This is how to conjugate it, and it has to be associated with the particle of. And on the other hand, you have a grammar, a syntactic grammar, that will recognize turn off every time it finds a verb with property PV, so a phrasal verb property PV here, followed by a sequence of word forms, followed by the value of the property part, so part here equals of, for the current entry for the phrasal verb. So if you apply these two linguistic resources to a text in which there is the sequence turns the light off, it will automatically annotate it as turn off, verb, present, third person singular. So concretely, let's say I have the text here, so the portrait of a lady. You can see that the word form cannot here. If you click Show Text Annotation Structure, you will see that cannot has been annotated as a sequence of two annotations, two atomic linguistic units, can, and then followed by not. Here is an example of a multi-word unit. So all of a sudden in the text has been annotated as one annotation here, one linguistic unit, all of a sudden adverb with some property. Notice that by default most of the multi-word units are ambiguous from a lexical point of view, because of course all of a sudden could also be all, followed by of, followed by followed by sudden. So we will need some extra syntactic information to make sure that we are here seeing the adverb and not a sequence of simple words. So if we look at discontinuous expressions such as to take something or to take somebody back, here there is an example here, an occurrence. Ralph Tatchett was to take his cousin back, which has been represented in NooJ as to take, and there is a little bridge, back. So you see the discontinuous expression to take back, the phrasal verb has been represented by one annotation with some discontinuity. So in terms of ambiguity, so we already saw that when you have a multi-word unit, such as high spirit, you're going to have multiple annotation hypotheses in parallel. So either high spirit is a noun, or high is an adverb, a noun or an adjective, followed by spirit, which could be a noun or a verb. So when NooJ has worked on a text, it has added and removed annotations from the task, and then you can export the task as an XML file. So with the menu item text, export task as XML. There are several options. Here I chose to only export the annotations that corresponds to multi-word units of the type noun plus xn, which means it's a multi-word unit that's a noun and that ends with a noun constituent. So if you see here, afternoon tea has been annotated in the XML format with its lemma annotate afternoon tea, category noun, structure xn, and singular, and then some other information such as domain, food, etc. So as we saw, we can export the task in an XML file, but there are some problems that we have to consider. So for example, let's say in our dictionary we have two multi-word units, all of a sudden, which is an adverb, and sudden death syndrome, which is a noun. What happens if in the text we find all of a sudden death syndrome? So when NooJ is going to apply the above dictionary to the text, it would represent the ambiguity. So we have either all of a sudden, which is going to be annotated as an adverb, but at the same time we could have a sudden death syndrome, which will be annotated as a noun. However, XML cannot handle cross-scoped annotation. So XML cannot, it's not valid, it's not a valid XML format to write something like all of a sudden annotated as an adverb and then sudden death syndrome annotated as a noun. This is illegal in XML. So what does NooJ do when you export a task into XML? Basically, it removes, so there are two solutions basically. Either you can make sure that you have removed all the ambiguities in the task before exporting the corresponding tags as XML, or NooJ will give priority to the first occurring multi-word unit. So in this example, if the ambiguity is still there, so NooJ, you have not used NooJ syntactic grammars to remove this ambiguity, so in the task you still have all of a sudden, which is annotated as an adjective, sudden death syndrome as a noun. When you export this part of the task, NooJ will just consider the first one, which is the adverb, all of a sudden, and will ignore the annotation that corresponds to sudden death syndrome. Until now, we have seen how we can add annotations to the task, basically by applying dictionaries and grammars to the task. So every time we find some hypothesis, some lexical hypothesis, we can annotate them in the task. But now we're going to see that we can also remove ambiguities by deleting annotations from the task. So how can we remove ambiguities of a word? It's because we are going to explore its context to find out that actually this is obligatorily a verb or a noun. So, for example, in NooJ dictionary, can is ambiguous because it can be the verb or a noun, a can of Coke. But in the context, in the following sentence, they can open the can of beer. The first occurrence of can cannot be something else than a verb, and the can of beer is a noun. So we can write grammars that will allow NooJ to automatically remove the ambiguities. So we are going to use syntactic and semantic grammars that describe contexts in which these ambiguities can be solved. However, we will see later how to do that. However, in general, many ambiguities will not be solved. So, for example, if you have a sentence such as "there is a round table in room A32," there is no syntactic information that can give, or even semantic information that can tell NooJ that we are talking about a meeting taking place in room A32, or if it's a table with a round shape. So there will still be ambiguities left in the task. So congratulations, now you know how to automatically annotate a text by applying dictionaries and morphological grammars to the text. We will see later that we can also apply syntactic and semantic grammars to add structural annotations or semantic representations of the text, or to remove annotations by using the context to remove ambiguities. Well, thank you.